Hello everybody, or is it nobody, for my first attempt at a YouTube video prompted by the last garment I made, which friends on a site said, please make a video to show us how to do the next one. So here goes. Great excitement this morning when Lady So-and-so in Henley-on-Thames managed to find me some Free Spirit K facet to go with some that I bought, it must be a couple of months ago. If I'd just been doing it for myself, I was going to add some Indian squares on and do the back and the front differently, but as this is a YouTube video, I thought I ought to do it properly. So I had already sewn what's now going to be the back. It was originally going to be, could you just move please round to show, it was going to be the other half lap quilt for the garden swing, just here with the Indian squares. I was going to have used to complement this, but now I can do it all in the same because wonderfully I've got 42 5-inch squares here, and then 5 blocks which I can cut into 4 with some left as binding, which will do for the belt and the binding all the way round. See more of that in a minute. These, what I do, it's very difficult, it's a bit like the wild garden outside, it's very difficult to keep a garden wild. And it's a bit like I find with random, it's very difficult to keep random. But I do like the effect of putting all these wonderful bright colours together. So the 5-inch squares I sew together in a square. So there's 4 of those. Then because I don't get on with the cutter, although I have recently taught myself to use the cutter, but I'm so frightened of cutting myself. I then use the cutter and my measurer to trim the square, which I think, well, it finishes off at about 8.5, but that's with seams. And then these ones, these fat quarters will make 4, as I said. So I then trim one off and then do with the cutter, make that one, whatever it be, it'd be about 9.5, wouldn't it, before I've sewn it. So make 4 9.5 out of that, saving the space at the edge here when I'm cutting them. But then all the rest I will do with scissors, using the perfect one of the cutter, and I find it does work out very accurately, and it saves me holding my breath and using the cutter for everyone. I have got some left from this also, which I can randomly put in. So went back, if I can just go back to saying, this is a random pattern of some of them are 4 and some of them are just the 1. But I like the effect of that. I do try and get them the right way up, so as the flowers, if there is an obvious right way up and not pointing downwards. But I think apart from that, I lay them on the bed in my craft room, and then I mark them in piles. So I will put that would be number 1 line, and so I'd stitch those together in a pile, so that this is 4x6, and then that would be number 2 row, and that would be number 3 row and number 4 row. So because I'm quite a large lady, for my back, which this is going to be, and it's already done, unfortunately I don't need to adapt it, it'll be 6x4. The front, well, more of that later anyway as I do it. I just wanted to set the introduction today. I'm just going to stop this flow now before I start going off at tangents, which I'm very famous for, and yeah, concentrate on what I'm doing. But I'm just going to stop the video now and go and just fill in the background to what has led me to this point here, and sort of just a little bit of my background. So cheerio for now, but you know, I'll be coming straight back at this point. Hello again. I'm a bit out of breath from walking upstairs, but to set the scene for this, what's going to be a hot tub beach robe, to go back to my last obsession, if you like, which was a few years ago. I went, actually it must have been pre-lockdown, because I did do quite, I think the 3 for the girls in lockdown. I went on a Gansey symposium when we were staying in the Outlaws caravan in Norfolk, Sheringham, is it called Sheringham or Sherrington? Oh gosh, I can never remember. And already I because I've been knitting since I was 7, I got into this and had already knitted very badly my first Gansey before I actually went on the symposium, and then followed, just loved the having some knitting on the go, really, just to watch television. Did my own pattern after the first one, but the pattern, if you like, for the robe is similar in design to the Ganseys, which, because I have been knitting so long and because I'm dyslexic and can't follow patterns, I tend to have everything in my head, which is always so buzzing with ideas. So it sort of started with the knitting and being able to do one for myself and then adapt it for other people. Anyway, I'm just going to stop this one, and I'm sort of doing this in the wrong order because I've got to just climb some more stairs now to, so I'm just going to stop this. Right, I don't quite know where to start in this room because I've staged it, in inverted commas, but to go round to my very first one, which is actually awful if you look at it in detail, because I started off, oh dear, that's not looking the right colour, that should be navy blue. I started off actually knitting it on 2 pins before I went on to the, oh, I don't like that colour, why is it showing up? That's better. Before I went on to the circular needle, I didn't quite get the gussets right, which was why I didn't want to put gussets on my first robe. I then made my own pattern up, which was, oh, it's all symbolic about ropes and what's the other thing, cables, and I think the seed stitch is the C. I can't remember now because I've moved on from my Gansey phase, but I did do lots of research and I do go all out when I have these obsessions. But what I was going to say, it was the design of being in a straight, let me show you on the other one, on the blue one, hopefully that'll look a better colour. Having the straight line, so you knit it all in one, round around 4 needles, and then you go to 2 needles for the front and the back, and then you add the sleeve at the armhole and then go in a straight line. So I suppose what I'm saying is it's the design and the measurements of how long you want it, you just adapt, and then the fact that it's sort of in a square, in squares really, which then lent itself to my first robe. So the story of that one, I'm on the site, the Last Homely House east of the see. And it's been, thank you so much, Kate Jackson, for I discovered you and for all the inspiration. But when I'd finished this, I put it on the site and I just got so many lovely comments, and somebody on the site did say to me, oh, it would be wonderful if you could do a YouTube to say how you'd made that one. So it is done on the square, like the Ganses really. So this is what I'm going to recreate. This is actually a, hang on, what am I calling it? What do you call it? Not a day robe. We call it a dressing gown, but it's not a dressing gown for the bedroom really. It's for sort of swanning round in before I get dressed in the mornings, and then if I get ready for bed in the evenings to sort of look presentable. There is another sort of page and all details about this one, but as I'm going to recreate it in this video, I just thought I'd just take a photograph and say that's what I'm sort of modelling it on. This has been adapted. I thought I got the sleeves too big, so I did one of these tapes with a button, and then also that was, I added that one just to hold the flaps together. That was the piece of ribbon that was round the cut pieces, so it was quite appropriate. I didn't realise I'd already bought the turquoisey ones with the idea of doing that, and then the youngest daughter bought me some more, and I didn't realise, for Mother's Day, I didn't realise that actually the reason it had Morris on it was because is it on the William Morris patterns, but done in the colours of Kay Fassett and Brandon Mabley. I think, again, I don't know if this is strictly true. I shall have to do some more research into it, but I think Brandon does the more sort of linear designs. But yeah, I've got to research that a bit more. I've been a follower of Kay Fassett since I don't know if it's the 80s or the 90s, his glorious knitting days. I didn't catch on. I did a bit of needlepoint and I did a bit of mosaicing, and then discovered him again with the quilting, and also Brandon with Kate and Kay at, or I hope I'm saying his name right, I always said it wrong for many years. I put the Kay Fassett, made that into the hanger there, which I shall do on my new one. And then the linings were Indian scarves. Some of the stitching is very big and ugly, but I found if I tried to do neat little stitching, it showed on the front. So when I did the hand stitching at the back, and I think the whole thing of doing this was to say, if I can make something, because I'm very clumsy. I'm not really, I don't think, a needle person. I was one of 4 girls and a boy, and I was always the sporty one. And I had 2 sisters who were far better at anything needlework than I was. Although I just say I did learn to knit and knit my first sweater when I was at primary school. Just on the same theme of what I've been up to, but I think I'll do another YouTube about it if this one is successful. And I think I've sort of been doing these before. This is where I get my theme for the pockets. This was a Whitney blanket, which I felted. Oh, the colour's not looking very good again. It's quite a nice shade of green. Let me just turn around there. Oh, that's better. which I've cross-stitched all the way around because I don't get on with blanket stitch, and then needle felted, and then taught myself to embroider. That's the back. And then with my signature pockets, where I take a bit of lovely fabric and then just embroider over the top of it. That's a horn button, so that's quite appropriate. What else can I say about these? But this was just another one that started off as a square. Oh, I don't know when, years ago. It was going to be a cardigan. And then it only got as far as a gilet. And I didn't like it. And it was in my days when I was doing spinning and weaving. And some of the, which was, oh, I don't know, probably the 80s. This is walnut dyed wool. And then I had this idea when I got into the patchworky quilty thing to embellish the knitting and line it. And now I know I shouldn't say it about things that I've made, but I absolutely do absolutely love these, and I love wearing them. And when I wear them, people stop me, and then I think sometimes they're not quite. Although I suppose no, that's not true, because we do end up having lovely chats. And I remember in Muddyford, in the toilets, talking to a woman, and then and it was all because of the gilet I was wearing, and she asked me if I'd made it, and then she'd said how she'd been very ill and had to put all her crafting stuff into storage, and she, you know, wanted to talk about it and how she was going to go back to it and how inspiring it is to just make things, even if in my case they're sort of usually fairly badly made, but to enjoy wearing them. And that you don't have to be an amazing seamstress, you just have to have a few skills and like needlework, really. This one was for the spring with the, it was based on a sort of cushion I did, and this was bits of Whitney blanket, felted Whitney blanket sewn together because there wasn't enough. I can't remember what I'd used the other one for. I think for covering some cushions. Possibly this could take a bit more work on it, really, but it's quite nice having sort of a plain one. Oh, and then quickly, oh no, I better turn this one off for now. Just quickly, before I stop this initial diatribe, just one more thing to show, but I've got to just go to another room, so hold on a minute. I did actually get back into quilting. This was one that had been in oldest daughter's loft. I think I started it, she then carried it on, and then it had all got rusty pins in it, and I did finish it off. This is on my rather untidy, whoops, craft room bed. But quite pleased with that, and I actually did do a bit of quilting on it. These were my first two patchwork ever, when we were first had, well, two of the girls, and in those days we used to, well, it's got their old school dresses in. I think it's even got some of my bridesmaid dress which Mum made in it, and they'd been used for various things, but originally they were made, I used to call it my worry work when we were moving house, because I'd just sit and hand stitch them together. But I made them really out of necessity. We didn't have a lot of money, and I actually on the first ones used a cot quilt on the back, and they are actually duvet colours, which the the two girls had on their beds for quite a long time. They've been repaired again quite badly. That bit there I'd oversewed. Some of them I took out. Some of the very worn bits I've recently taken out and re-put in. But when I look at this, this was, somebody gave me a half-finished dress after I'd had my first baby and I wasn't getting back into my, well, I don't know, size 12 clothes. They gave me this and I finished it off, and there's a picture of me wearing that. Well, that baby's now coming up to 52, so that's lasted very well. But with these two, what happens is I just use them as occasional duvets. They're still duvet covers. Can't remember what fastening they've got on them, but at the moment they've had a new sheet put on them. Oh, actually they haven't got a fastening on them. That's right, I made them as like a pillowcase. I just did a flap over on those. That one's the oldest, because that is the one that's got some bridesmaid dress material and then school material. But then you can see there it's got some Indian squares. When I first found Kate's site, and I sent off some very fine, which suits this well because obviously the cotton is so old it's gone very fine. These other hexes, so they fitted in nicely, but these I did actually either take the hexie out that was worn out or possibly stitched it over the top. Right, I think that's probably enough. I think what I'm going to do is post this YouTube, see if there's any interest in it at all, and then I do want to get on with doing my second, the orangey robe, and should probably do it in no time at all, because I like to these days get the housework done and then stop for some crafting at about 4 o'clock and just if we're not going anywhere, do a bit of crafting. So I think that's the plan at the moment. So the number 6 out of 7 grandsons, we had 3 daughters and they all had boys, so we've got only grandsons, is going to put this on YouTube for me. So it's all a bit of an experiment. And I have to say, I really hate the bit with me on it at the beginning, because you don't really know what you look like and you only ever see yourself in a mirror. So excuse my tatty hair, and but I'll get him to put this on, see if there's any takers, and then there will be a part 2 about finishing off the orange one. By the way, this whole thing on the, I don't know if I said earlier, but it's going to be called, what did I decide on? Cloth to frock. I used to give talks from fleece to cloth in my spinning weaving days, and oldest daughter called it, nicknamed it fleece to frock. And then the ganzes, the Cornish name for ganzes are knit frocks. So when I was trying to think what I'm going to call myself, or call the gilets, actually I called or said I was Mrs. Cropley from the Vicar of Dibley of the crafting world, but I wasn't sure whether I needed a copyright. I did try and get in touch with Richard Curtis to say, could I call myself Mrs. Cropley? And then I actually call the gilets Cropleys. I call them my Cropleys. So that will be a sort of different one. I do plan to do some more, so that will be a different video if anyone watches it or is interested in my ramblings, because I can talk for England. When we moved here, I said, well, I realised that because I'm married to someone, we're coming up to our 50 odd anniversary, who's a very strong silent type. As soon as I see anyone, I talk too much, so I just say, hello, I'm Louise, I talk too much. It's quite funny, people's reactions, but generally people will say, oh, sorry, I can't chat today or something. And just occasionally, if I sort of see that look on their face as I approach, I get in first and say, sorry, I can't stop today, I'm in a hurry, even if I'm not, because I don't want to get too much of a reputation. But actually, the family can say I talk too much, and I don't mind that. The grandsons can say what they like to me, and I just laugh and say they're developing their sense of humour, which they are, which is brilliant. Anyway, bye for now, and I'll get Zach to post it for me. He's apparently previously done some Lego ones, so he knows what he's doing, and then possibly add some music on. Next time, if I am stitching or something and not talking, which is very unlikely, I could whistle. I can't really sing these days, but I do like whistling. I could always whistle some accompaniment to it, but so that's highly unlikely that I won't be wittering away about something. Bye for now. Hope you like it so far, and watch this space for me. I don't think I'll show you pictures of me actually sewing away. I might just do it and then tell you what I've done, because I'm not very good at it. I've got to give myself more credit, but I'm quite shaky-handed, and I have mega attempts to thread needles and things, so you don't want a video of me trying to thread a needle. So I'll probably actually do it and then just show you what it is I've done and give you the gist of it. And then, as I said, and I don't know if I have said it before, but if I can do these things and make these things, oh, honestly, anyone can. And it doesn't actually matter as long as you enjoy it. And people who don't craft, I don't know what they do, because they are so missing an opportunity, in my opinion, to just have such an enjoyable experience. And then to actually wear something or use something that you've made, oh, it's just amazing. And then, just enjoying it, again, that's amazing. Even if someone else is looking at it and thinking, oh, I don't like that. Doesn't matter, it's brilliant. Bye for now. Signing off, over and out.
Go.
Hello again, and welcome to part 2 of this cloth to frock video. Basically my orange Cafe Facet hot tub stroke beach robe. I'm just in the process of cutting the 5 fat quarters into 4 9-inch squares to make up I'm starting on the sleeve. So first of all, I iron the fat quarter, and what I'm having to do is to be really careful to leave the maximum amount of ends, because I need this for the binding and for the belt. So I'm slightly worried on this one I'm not going to have enough for the belt, but I can always get a pink ribbon or think about something else for the belt if there isn't enough for both. So I iron them into squares. This one, could you just pan in on this one just for a minute, has got the selvage on. So I'm going to lose a bit of my binding for this one. But this is the one I'm using as my template. And I just hold it on the corner, having ironed that. And then I'm going to have to get a new ironing board cover if I'm going to be making videos. It's a bit grubby. And then I just cut, using that one as a template. I explained in the other video how I don't get on with the cutter, and this is the way I made the other one. And I do find if I'm careful, So it does work. And then just move the template onto these other two. And then there's a pile I've already done just there. So again, if I line it up very carefully, and then it leaves me two nice bits of edging. Out of all the 5 fat quarters, there was only one that actually had K facet on the selvage that I need to use. I'll show you that in a minute. That's over on the table. That I need to use as my hanging up hook thing on it. So I'm just going to cut this second one, well, this last one, and then I just have to cut them. Have I done that the wrong way around? I have as well. I was supposed to be doing it by the fold, not by the fold. I was supposed to be doing it by the selvage. I've gone and done it wrong. Here's me saying about saving stuff for the selvage. But I will actually probably sew lots of bits together lengthways. So that shouldn't have been like that. That should have been on the, oh gosh, that's trying to talk and video at the same time. That should have been on the joint, so I had a nice bit left like that. But in fact I did it the wrong way around, so I've got the lengths back because I got a bit worried about not using that. Never mind. I think I've got just about the right number, but should be a couple of squares left. And then just while I'm on the ironing board here at the island unit, it's quite funny. There was a question somebody asked about whether you would wash the material first, but obviously if you're steam ironing it, you're cleaning it anyway, so there's no need to. And then I do think it's funny that this is one youngest daughter. I don't iron my sea salt cotton dresses. I just press them out with my fingers on the washing line when they're damp. So it seems quite funny that with all the quilting, I'm spending a lot of time ironing squares, and I don't really do any ironing at the moment, but this is enjoyable ironing anyway. Right, bye for now, and then I'll show you where I'm getting up to on the sleeves. Right, here's the sleeve pieces. That's 2 sleeves actually, and I've done the four up the middle because I wanted to take some of the bulk out of the sleeve on this one, because I felt the last one was too bulky on the sleeves. This is the scarf I'm going to use as the lining. And I think what I'm going to do also on this one is, once I've machined those together, I'm going to put a stay stitch all round the lining as well. And then I'm going to sew it together, but that'll come later, as a whole, and do French seams just at the side, instead of making a separate garment for the lining. The 2 sleeves stitched together with the scarf lining stitched onto it on the back, with just a stay stitch all the way round. The 5-inch squares I've sorted out into pleasing combinations to sew those together, but that'll be tomorrow now. It's coming on very nicely. Hello, welcome back. Just updating you where I'm up to. I've done the backing done the sleeves and done the backing for those, and I've done the backing for the back, which I had previously already stitched, But I'm not going to base that on yet, because I want to now have the enjoyable task of randomly putting the pieces together that are going to go down the two fronts, and I need to match it up with the back so as I don't get two pieces the same across there or at the sides. I've also stitched together all the 5-inch squares, so I had a lot of fun doing that and just matching sort of random colours together, and I shall do the same with the two fronts. The only bit that I'm going to match, as I did on the other robe, were the two half squares that I did down there, because I'm a bit tight on how many squares I've got left now. I need 24 for the front, so 12 and 12. So yeah, 2 rows of 6. So when they're finished, these are the 4 5-inch become 9-inch squares, the same as these that I've cut. So I should just be doing that now, and then I'll next time I come back, I will have pinned them, I think, in rows, and probably stitched up the front and stitched the lining to the back, ready to then assemble it as a garment before making the binding and putting that on next. I've still not really decided what I'm going to do down the front. On the other one, I need the flap over because it's going to be a beach robe, hot tub robe, and if I've, in the privacy of the garden, got a bikini on and someone calls in, I need to totally cover myself up. So I need the flap over and the belt, I think. I did entertain the idea of perhaps putting ties all the way down, but I think with the other one, I'm going to actually shape the neck more so as I don't have the curly bit I had on the other one. The curly bit went round there, whereas I'm going to make it more of a straight line down so that I can just wrap them over and then tie the belt round my middle. And I think I will have enough for the binding. I've been trying to YouTube about making binding, because on the last one I did it in 2 bigger chunks. I'd sort of decided how thick I wanted it, and then I just stitched it together, and then some of them were 2 chunks to get 2 strips to get the width. Then I ended up having to put it on the wrong way round because I couldn't work out a way of putting the binding on that didn't match one of the big squares. So I did think it looked a bit odd if the binding was the same on that bit as the square next to it. So what I'm planning to do on this one, I've got all the binding bits saved and ironed. It's going to be about that width and length, but I think I'm going to, and then the ones that aren't wide enough I'm going to sew together. But I have seen a YouTube, I was watching a Terry Rowlands one last night on making binding, but she was using all the same materials, so it didn't really apply. But I think I have seen one where you can make it all in long strips, but then cut the strips and then reattach them at a different place. So you'd probably end up with just little lengths of the same. So that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm obviously not going to have that bit of binding all in one long length like that and hope that it didn't clash with the squares that are down here. I do think it would look a lot better if it was just little chunky lengths. So I shall keep looking anyway to see if there's a way I can make binding. Otherwise, because I'm not very good at instructions, I shall carry on puzzling it out in my head, and then I'll just do my version of it. I'm not going to do it on the cross. I'm just going to do it as I did with the other one. And actually the other one did, oh hello, the explorers arrived back. It's very hot here today. I've got his son. I'm just videoing myself talking, and you look like the explorer with your rucksack and your sun hat. Right, bye for now. Hello again. I've just been up in my craft room, just loosely binding the cotton scarves to the body, back and front. It's just really to help when I do the seams and the binding, which I still haven't quite decided what I'm going to do, hold it together. I'm not too fussy because if any of the stitches show, I shall pull it undone anyway when it's stitched together. So I've done the, that's one of the fronts. It still needs trimming. The other front and the back. I've still got to decide what sort of seams I use. I want them to really lie flat, so I think I might just stitch the seams together, and also I think in the underneath the arm on some of the Indian robe things that I've got, sort of you know, that you wear on a summer evening, they've actually got a bit of a gap in the armpit, so I might do that so as it doesn't lie too bulkily. With this one, I don't want it to be anywhere near as bulky as the other one, so I'm trying to reduce the seams and everything. So I might, with the side seam and the arm seam, just do a straight seam, but then just perhaps zigzag. I was contemplating doing a French seam, but or one that sort of, I don't know, lies like a flat seam, I think it's called, but I'd have to turn the edges over, and I still think that would be a bit heavy, just rather than the straight seam over sewing the edges. So I think that's what I've decided to do now. So it's coming along nicely. I've just got to, I think I might stitch it together next and then start making the binding and doing the finishing off touches. So that's where I'm up to today. Bye for now. Hello again. Well, we've finally worked out how I'm going to do this binding. I always run everything through hubby, and he knows nothing about sewing, knitting or anything, but then we'll come up with a very practical idea, which he's done. I don't know whether we've invented it, but I'm going to just turn the camera round, the iPad round, to show you. So that will be the next part. So hang on 1 minute. So here we have all the strips laid out, which are all different widths. And I want the binding to start off at 3 inches. So what I'd come up with doing was sewing, I keep trying to point and I can't point. How can I point at the same time? I can't. Wait a minute, let's turn it round. Hello again. So what I'm going to do next is sew all the strips that I've got for the binding left over, but I'm going to sew them along this way to make a solid piece of material, which is the best way to make a uniform amount of binding that I want. And then hubby came up with a brilliant idea, because what I'm going to do is then cut 3-inch strips down that way, but I was worried about all the ends fraying. So the next thing, having measured 3 inches, will be to do a double line of stitching and cut in between, so the edges will stay together. Then when I've got about 6 3-inch strips out of this one, I'll then sew them all together in one great long line, hopefully to produce 121 inches long, which is what I need for the binding to go all the way up around the front, around the neck and down to the bottom. So that'll be the next stage. Bye for now. The one piece of K-Fast set name I had on the selvage, I've made into a little parcel. I ironed it into a little parcel, and that will be the coat hanger on the hanger upper on the back of it. Then had a great thought about the pockets, and I have decided to do what I call my signature pockets, where I've got 2 of the squares, flowery squares, and I've just had good fun getting what's left of my embroidery silks out, matching some of the colours up onto the 2 of the 5-inch squares that I saved to make the pockets. They will be embroidered through all 3 layers. I'm going to make the pockets, that's a bit of lining, and those are 2 bigger squares, which won't be quite as big as that once I've machined them together. I'll box them in, and I think I will turn the edge over and hand stitch, perhaps a running stitch all the way round that one, and then just have a bit of fun with chain stitch, blanket stitch, French knots just on top of this bit here. Most things I've made have had, as I say, that sort of a pocket on. I was going to try and do to make the line look a bit more sleek of the garment, which is what I'm trying to do. I was going to try and do the pocket inserts with this lining material. Actually, the dress I've got on has got, maybe I don't know if I can show you. Oops, I can't point down at it while I'm videoing. Don't know if you can see the pockets there just in the side of it. So I was going to possibly make just side pockets, but then decided I did have enough, and I do just enjoy doing the tiny bit of very bad embroidery on the pockets. So that's what I've decided to do, seeing as I shouldn't be saying it, everything else seems to be going so well at the moment. All the strips stitched together, I'm just going to fold the 21-inch length into 6 and then iron that down, and then I can stitch either side of it. It's a pity it's not smelly vision, because the sweet peas smell absolutely gorgeous, the first lot this year. So I believe it's called steeking. So I don't know if you can see, where I ironed it in the whole square of strips, I then ironed it to then sew either side of the ironed line. And when you're making a jumper that you've knit on the round into a cardigan, that's the sort of thing you do, and I believe it's called steeking, steeking, I believe. So I'm now going to cut down the middle of the 2 rows of stitching to make 6, approximately, doesn't matter as long as it's all the same, so they're approximately 3 inches wide. The binding will be, which I can then iron in half and proceed to stitch on round the outside of the garment, which I've just got to be brave, and I just want to take a bit of the neck just to make it fall better than the other one did. So I shall do a stay stitch on that bit when I've ironed it into the right sort of position, and then I'll probably stitch it on first on the right side, the binding, and just go all the way round. So, but I think that's enough for today, because I start making mistakes if I get too excited and try to cram too much into one day, like I did on the steeking, where I had to somehow I crossed over. I don't know if you can see it. Where's it gone? I crossed over the lines anyway oh, there it is. There's the crossover. Oops, I got, where is it? There. But it doesn't matter. It's only to hold when I cut here, it's to hold this stitching in place just at the ends until I get the binding sewn on. And obviously the 6 lengths have got to be sewn together. It was fairly difficult getting it random, and there seemed to be an awful lot of that one, but I hope once it's all sewn together as binding, it will be random enough for me. I'm just laughing actually at how bright and gregarious it is, and so it doesn't need to be absolutely desperately random, because it's random enough anyway. Just coming up to the final bit now. I've attached the binding, and it's pinned now, ready to hand stitch quite largely. I find it's got to be to not show on the right side, so the wrong side has to have large stitches. The hook's has been sewn, but has got to be attached. And then I've had a change of heart about the pockets. They're just going to go on the inside, because I figured I wanted to make it look as elegant and slender as possible. And for a beach robe and hot tub don't really need pockets, so I was going to put them on the inside. No, they're not going there, they're going to the centre seam, which I've still got to over sew. They're going to go on the inside, just there. most of the time they won't have anything in them, but they'd just be there if I wanted to tuck a handkerchief into. I'm just making the ties, so if I can just move over to the ironing board. I've just, very last bits of material now, I have just steeped or stitched double rows here, and I'd sewed all the scraps that I'd got left together in a big long strip, and I've just cut up that one there, and I've just got another one there, and then that's a tie that I had left over from the binding that I've just machined round, and there's going to be 3 more like it. Where the sweet peas gone? Some lovely sweet peas again. Oops, today it's in just by the air fryer. They smell absolutely gorgeous and the colours are wonderful. Hello again, last one in this series, my beach robe come hot tub robe is all finished now, complete with pockets and belt, and all ready to use after I get out of the hot tub. Bye for now. So here is the finished article. The pockets changed about 3 times and ended up being the very last 2 squares I had. Bit of embroidery, I don't know what you call that one, a sort of a running stitch with the different colour threads which I picked out, and then the cross stitch, the different colour threads on the side here, and their outside pockets. The straps that I'd made to be ties, I did 4 of them. In the end I unpicked the edges and stitched them together to make the belt. I didn't have any material left to make cloth ties, so I chain stitched a bit of embroidery cotton into the side here. I don't know if you can see, for the belt loop. It's just orange embroidery cotton, all 6 strands, which I threaded through with a sewing needle first, made myself a little loop, and then just did 20 chain stitches down for the loop at the side. What else changed? I think we already had the hook already stitched on, and the lining was a gorgeous Indian scarf which I cut into 4 pieces for the front, and then this was some material I got at a garden sale, which is cotton, because I did the where you set fire to a piece of it and see what the ash looks like, but I'd had to soak it, oh crumbs, I don't know how many times in cold water to set the colour until the water became clear, because to start with I didn't think I was going to be able to use it because the water kept coming out bright pink. Anyway, to just try on the finished robe to see if this is a better picture than the one I'd taken yesterday by the tub, and then inadvertently ended up flashing my swimming costume. I might leave it in, or I might see what happens with the editing. So there we go. Very pleased with this one, but the next one I make, possibly as a present for somebody, I'm going to make even more modifications. The sleeves don't matter that they're wizard sleeves, as it's a beach robe, not the day robe where I'll be washing up and the sleeves were going to get in the way. And I have made them slimmer. I'm very pleased with how they've ended up, and the whole shape of it really. Anyway, that's the end of this, my first, what was I calling it, cloth to frock, and possibly there might be others on different subjects, but we'll see how this one goes. Bye.